right, so here's our overview of what we're going to be covering in this chapter. So by the end of this set of lectures, you will know what pseudoscience is, how it differs from junk science, what's wrong with pseudoscience. I'm going to take a little bit of a tactic to discuss how the role that beliefs play in our adopting of pseudoscientific beliefs and premises. We'll talk a little bit about the kind of evidence that pseudoscience relies on, and then we will wrap up by talking about actual controlled studies and how they gather their information. All right, so let's start off with defining pseudoscience. So pseudoscience is made up of four basic components. One is they make their claims based on uncontrolled evidence. So in the examples I'm going to give about the evidence that pseudoscience relies on, what you're going to notice is time after time, the evidence that they use can't be controlled, we can't be sure that the inferences that are being drawn from whatever evidence there is valid because the evidence isn't controlled. The evidence is something that maybe just naturally happens, or that all the participants got the same treatment, or things like that. The evidence is not presented for public scrutiny. That's another sign that something is pseudoscientific. Instead of doing what typical scientists do, which is, well, if you're skeptical of the results of my study, please take a look at my data. Look at what the raw data was. Here, these are the actual response forms where the participants actually mark their answers. You're welcome to look at that. In pseudoscience, when you ask about the alternative cancer treatments, for example, they may say, oh, well, we don't maintain that data. And typical scientific protocol is to maintain your data and to make it available to other people for review. And so not allowing people to look at the data, not publishing studies that explain how the data was collected, how the inferences were drawn. By not putting the process up for public scrutiny, we have to assume that it's not being done properly. So the next one is that the evidence is not replicable. So, okay, fine. You don't want to show me your data. Fine. I'll rerun the study myself and see if I get the same outcome. And I don't get the same outcome. I get maybe a 180-degree turn away from the outcome that you got. That's not by itself evidence of pseudoscience. The fact that I can't replicate doesn't mean that what you did is pseudoscience. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I am trying to say is if you're not willing to show me your data and my data is different from yours, I might start to think, one of us maybe didn't collect the data the way that it needed to be collected. Or because you won't tell me exactly how you collected your data, I don't know if I'm even replicating your study right. I might be doing something different from what you did. So evidence not being replicable on its own is not evidence of pseudoscience, but putting it together with the other two items, now we're starting to get suspicious. And then finally, you'll notice a person is probably a pseudoscientist when they denigrate the scientific community. When they say, I don't need to show you my data. I don't need to have controlled data. I don't need to follow the scientific protocols. Those scientific protocols were arbitrarily set up anyway. Whoever decided that that's the way to do it? Nobody really follows those protocols. They say those kinds of things. I hear it a lot on the internet where people talk about nobody really does science anymore. You can't trust any science. You can't trust anything. Everybody's been bought out by the big pharma. Like those kinds of things are the kinds of things that pseudoscientists say because they want to undermine the validity of the scientific method and scientists in general. So scoffing is another way. And so if I request from a person who's made a claim, hey, can I look at your data? And they say, no, I don't maintain that kind of data and I don't need to anyway. I don't know why you think that's more scientific than for me to just record it and process it and report it. Why are you asking for it anyway? That kind of skepticism that they're kind of showing towards the scientific method is a red flag. All right, so let's take a little break here and you can watch this video that talks a little bit about some strategies for recognizing when evidence might be pseudoscientific. So I will let you see this in the playlist next, and I'll see you on the other side.